Welcome back, everyone. This is the author of the book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. And I want to discuss some of the warnings that I've been talking about watching the Temple Mount and how important it was going to be to watch what was going to happen on the Temple Mount in Israel. Now, if you're new to prophecy, if you're new to what's been going on in the Middle East, you really need to understand what I'm about to tell you, because it's going to be very, very important to you understanding the future. And it's not my future, it's the future that the Lord shows us in Scripture. But because most of the people don't read the Bible, they would know what I'm going to say. So what I'm going to first do is bring you back to November the 22nd, 2013, almost a year ago, one of my many warnings that I've been talking about as it relates to the Temple Mount. Now, back in November of 2013, I was reporting on an article, as you see here, Jordan vetoes Israeli request to allow the Jewish prayer on the temple. Let me just go down here and read what I wrote you. Do you think that Jesus is going to let Abd al-Nasser stand in the way of the Jews going up to worship on the Temple Mount? No way. The Jews in the near future will be allowed to have full access on the Temple Mount, and yes, they will build their third temple. Why am I saying this? Is because that's what the Lord showed us in Scripture, that the third temple was going to be built, so there's no question about that. It's just, how is it going to happen? What's going to proceed on the Temple Mount to bring about this third temple? I'm going to go on. It says this. This is from my quote. We'll start here. The sad thing about all this is the Jews will learn the hard way who Jesus really is. The Jews may think building the third temple is a good thing, but in reality, all that is happening is they are fulfilling Bible prophecy, which will bring on the Antichrist, of which he will try to kill off all the Jews and anyone else who doesn't worship him, as seen in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. Moving down into my quote, in my past post, I have shown you that there is a movement going on in Israel today by high Israeli officials to allow the Jews to access the Temple Mount area. Anyone who is reading this post and does not believe, all I can tell you is watch and see for yourself what happens. When you are an eyewitness to the Jews being able to pray in the Temple Mount, you will know the next phase is coming, the temple. So that's one of my warnings, again, back in November of 2013. Now let me go to another warning, a video that I made for you. And unless you saw that, you wouldn't know the warning. So let's go over to it. Now, the title to this YouTube video that I made back in May 20th of 2014, it was called Tensions on the Temple Mount. And I'm going to start it at the 3.16 mark in my video. Now, a couple days ago, I talked a little bit about what was going on at the Temple Mount. I warned you many times in my previous post what to look for, and it is happening. The call for prayer on the Temple Mount. You see, this is the Temple Mount area, and the Dome of the Rock, which is the third most holy site for the Muslims, it's there. The Temple Mount is being run by the Muslims. In 1967, when that war ended and Israel was in control of this Temple Mount area for the first time in almost 2,000 years, for those of you who may not know, the Israelis allowed the Muslims to take the facility and run it. They didn't give it to them, they just were generous and gave it to them to run. Now, over the course of these many years, obviously, things have turned around and the Muslims are really controlling this area, and they're keeping the Jews away from the Temple Mount area here to pray. And of course, I've been warning you that the time is coming when they will be praying on the Temple Mount, and then they are going to build the temple. Now, the Palestinians and the Arabs know that in increments that the Jews are trying to get hold of this area, in other words, have full access to this Temple Mount area. So with that, we see in the news today confusion over the Temple Mount prayer law used to fan tensions. And this is what I said, one of the scenarios I believe that could happen is that when Israel pushes their way to the Temple Mount area and the Arabs see this, that could cause a war because they do not want their area to be defiled. The Muslims believe that it will be defiled if the Jews go up there and pray. Now, what I wanted to show you, if you don't know anything about the Psalm 83 war, because I believe that it is possible that the Psalm 83 war may take off or begin because of this area, this Temple Mount area. So the people who will be coming against Israel, I believe in a sudden destruction, will be those people that the Lord outlined for us in Psalm 83. And of course, that would be Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, and the Palestinians. Now, the Palestinians have been in the news more because they are the ones that are more active or have been active trying to get a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, but nothing is working. All right, so I'm going to stop it there and now go to today's news. You see the headline, Jordan to Israel, you are citing a religious conflict over the Temple Mount. Jordan is warning that an Israeli plan to allow the Jewish prayer at the sensitive Temple Mount area could have disastrous consequences for the region. Jordanian Foreign Minister Nasser Judah on Monday accused Israel of inflaming religious tensions over the planned Jewish worship at the site. The Temple Mount is holy to both the Jews and the Muslims and managed by the Palestinian Authority under a long-standing agreement. Under the terms of the agreement, Muslim worshippers are allowed to enter the Temple Mount complex throughout the entire day, but the Jews are only allowed entry as visitors, not worshippers, in the morning only through a certain gate and with police protection. Clashes between the Muslim worshippers and police have resulted in restrictions on Palestinian entry to the site. Days shy of the 20th anniversary of the Israel-Jordan peace agreement, Amman has launched a media blitz against what it terms attempts to change the status quo at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The claim comes amid recent clashes between the Israelis and Palestinians in the Temple Mount area and against the backdrop of the reports of the Knesset bill that would permit Jews to pray at the site. Exactly what I've been warning about for a very, very long time. On Tuesday, King Abdullah and other high-ranking Jordanian officials heavily criticized the proposed changes. Abdullah fiercely expressed his stance on the issue in a meeting with Jordanian parliament members on Monday, comparing Islamic religious extremists to the Zionist extremists. Now, all they want to do, the Jews, is go up and pray. They don't want to go up and kill anyone. So why they're calling them extremists is beyond reason, because it just doesn't fit what an extremist is. An extremist is somebody that wants to go and kill arbitrarily to get rid of you completely, and that's exactly what the Palestinians and the Muslims want to do, because the Jews just want to go up and pray. So let's continue on. We'll start right here. We warned that it would be impossible to combat Islamic fundamentalism whilst Israel was killing Palestinians with impunity. And of course, they're talking about the recent wars that have taken place or the conflicts that have taken place. But Israel has only gone in after they were attacked repeatedly by missile barrages constantly. They had to go in and stop the missiles from raining on the Israeli citizens. Now moving on, it says, if we partner in an Arab Islamic coalition designed to combat extremism within Islam, and the Israelis want to kill the children in Gaza and Jerusalem every 5 minutes, it is a problem, he said. And of course, that is a blatant lie. Israel is not looking to kill people every 5 minutes. They just want to live a peaceful life without being attacked. Now, meanwhile, the kingdom's UN ambassador Dana Kawar told the UN Security Council on Tuesday that Jordan would fight Israeli violations in all ways possible: diplomatic, political, and legal. Israel's action in Jerusalem are a violation of international law, said Kawar. The Jordanian ambassador wrote on her Twitter account that Israel must stop provocative actions and its systematic attempts to create a new reality in Jerusalem. And that new reality that they're talking about is to allow Jews access to the Temple Mount to pray. That's the major crutch of the problem. Now it says, Israel knows that the Temple Mount is a red line not to be crossed for 1.5 billion Muslims around the world who will not remain silent amid these violations. And of course, that is the warning that I've been talking about, but there's more. The Jordanian ambassador to the Palestinian Authority, Khaled Shahbak, also said the King Abdullah and the Jordanian government were making hasty efforts in the international Arab arena to block the ratification of the Knesset bill proposed by the Ludwig MK Meir Regev, which aims to divide the prayer times. Get this, because this is really the meat of the material here, which I've been warned about, which aims to divide the prayer times at the Al-Aqsa Mosque between the Jews and the Muslims. In other words, split it up so that they'll have full access, to Jews, to be able to pray just like the Muslims have full access to pray at any given day or any given minute of the day. And that, my friends, I've been warning about for the last 2 years, and it's actually going to happen, and I believe it's going to happen soon. It says, Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem are a red line. What is happening in Jerusalem is not acceptable, Shahbak said. Now this next section I want you to really put it in your mind, because it deals with 2 Thessalonians, where the Lord talked to Paul, and he told Paul that in the last days, when they're calling for peace and safety, sudden destruction is going to come. And they're going to be talking about a peace process. Keep in mind that the only peace agreements that have been signed were with Egypt, and of course that has fallen apart, and Jordan. Now look at this. It says, on Monday, the foreign minister Judah voiced his complaints in a meeting with Norwegian counterpart Borg Brendi. Israeli violations in Jerusalem could destroy the peace process, he told Brendi. Such flagrant and aggressive attacks will drag the region into a religious conflict that will subvert the peace prospects and fuel extremism, terrorism, and violence in the region. In other words, war. And that, my friends, is exactly what we see in the scriptures. We see the Arabs coming down on Israel when they're calling for peace and safety. Sudden destruction. So in concluding, let me invite you to go to my website, and there you'll be able to get my book today for free. It talks all about what you're reading about the Temple Mount, people falling away from their faith. Gives you all of this information in detail, and you can have it today for free. God bless.